China has a perpetual rivalry with India. This is not a new story. Both nations have huge populations and are among some of the best military powers globally. However, standing head-to-head, the Chinese military stands out. But that does not mean that the Indian Army is any less of a threat to the People's Liberation Army. Most people would relate their dispute to border issues, but the reality is way beyond that. India might seem to have a lower military budget, but they have been a huge threat to China and President Xi Jinping. Want to know why? Stay with us. In this video, we will discuss how the Indian Army is giving President Xi Jinping, the leader of the Communist Party, sleepless nights and putting the whole of China on their toes. But before we dive right into the topic of discussion, let's talk about how the India-China dispute all started. History of the India-China War. In old and recent history, there has been endless conflict between India and China. These two Asian superpowers have been in a race to dominate each other and the entire Asian region. How did it all start? Well, let me give you a rundown of the most notable events in the recent history of this conflict. India-China War of 1962. On October 13, 1962, the Chinese army attacked and captured the Indian border town of Longju. This was followed by a counterattack by Indian troops, who retook the city on November 27, 1962. India-China War of 1987. India responded with an airstrike on strategic airfields in Pakistan, a Chinese ally, located at Sargodha and Amritsar. This crippled Pakistan's fighter jet capability for several years. India-China War, 1999. After the Kargil War got underway between Pakistan and India, China launched its own military operation against Indian forces in the Ladakh region on July 8, 1999. After 2 weeks of fighting, 45 kilometers inside Indian territories, another battle ensued in the Chumar area near Daulat Beg Oldi. About 1,500 Indian troops were surrounded by over 5,000 People's Liberation Army soldiers for 2 weeks. It took the efforts of reinforcements from Leh after receiving signals from the satellite phones provided by the United States Armed Forces, who had been deployed during Operation Desert Storm under President George Bush Sr. to rescue them. Chinese forces withdrew back across the Line of Actual Control, LAC, while maintaining control over Karakoram Pass, which is the key terrain advantage they needed to have before launching any further attack into the Ladakh region in future conflicts. President Xi Jinping continues to get sleepless nights from the Indian Army. The reason, many say, is that he plans to attack India from the Pakistan side in the case of future escalation or disputes. But the Indian Army, on the other hand, is well prepared for any kind of attack from China or Pakistan. They have mapped out a strategic military plan to counter any kind of attack from either China or Pakistan. President Xi Jinping wants to build an economic corridor between China and Pakistan. This corridor will be used for trade and commerce between countries. It will also help Chinese companies in getting access to other markets easily in India and other parts of Asia as well. To counter this move by the Chinese president, the Indian Army has also made plans to construct roads connecting its border with China so that they can move their troops quickly in case they need to confront any kind of aggression by China or Pakistan during a wartime situation. China has given money to Pakistan to build ports on their land, which would help the Chinese Navy's ships enter the Indian Ocean easily without any hindrance from the Indian Navy ships docked at the Mumbai port. A lot of people think that China is the strongest of all the Asian countries, but they are wrong. In fact, India's army is far more powerful than it seems. The Indian Army has over 1.3 million active personnel and over 1.2 million reservists at its disposal. That's more than 3 times as many soldiers as China has in its entire army. And while many people are quick to point out that China has a larger landmass, population, economy, and military budget than India, and therefore would seem like a more formidable foe, that doesn't mean that India isn't a threat to China because of its size and number of soldiers in its army. That's because both countries' armies have different strengths and weaknesses. The Chinese People Liberation Army, PLA, focuses on mechanized warfare with tanks and rocket launchers, whereas the Indian Army has focused on counterinsurgency operations against insurgents from Pakistan or Maoist guerrillas from within India itself, which is why we're seeing such increased tensions between the two countries. The Indian Army has been on an expansion spree over the last few years, with many new weapons systems being acquired from Russia and Israel. It has also upgraded its existing arsenal of tanks and infantry fighting vehicles with modern equipment like night vision goggles and thermal imagers for better night operations in mountainous terrain, where most patrols take place due to a lack of roads connecting remote villages across vast distances. China is worried about this because they want their own territorial claims in South Asia so that they can expand their influence regionally as well as globally without any opposition from other superpowers like America or Russia, who have interests elsewhere around the globe. India's army is much smaller than China's, and its weapons are also less modern. In fact, the Indian Army has a budget of $76.6 billion per year compared to China's $293 billion. Despite this disadvantage, the Indian Army has been able to stand its ground against China in recent years. This is mainly because of India's military leadership has been more innovative than China's in recent years. A clear example is the implementation of new technologies for warfare, such as drones. The Indian Army is much better disciplined than the Chinese military. For instance, there have been many reported cases of rape and other sexual assault in the Chinese military. The latest India-China dispute involves the Dolam Plateau. The region is on the border between China and Bhutan, a small neighboring country to India. China has claimed that this area is part of its territory, while Bhutan claims it as its own. In 2017, China started building roads in this area and other parts near Nepal and Bangladesh that are also claimed by Bhutan. To protect its sovereignty over the plateau, India sent soldiers to stop Chinese construction efforts there in June 2017. They have since remained stationed there. The Indian Army is indeed a force to reckon with. Many attributes make this huge military force a direct threat to the might of the People's Liberation Army. Strong military. India's armed forces comprise 1.3 million personnel, making it the world's second largest military force by manpower. Strong economy. India's economy was ranked 10th in terms of nominal GDP in 2018, with a total worth of $2 trillion and growing at an average annual rate of over 7% since 2011. In contrast, China's economy is ranked 6th overall, with a total worth of $12 trillion and an average annual rate of 6% between 2013 and 2016, the latest available data. Strong democracy. India is one of the oldest democracies in Asia with an independent parliament that functions on the principle of the rule of law, whereas the Chinese Communist Party, which is the sole ruling party of modern China, has been accused by many international organizations such as Amnesty International of human rights violations, including forced labor camps for political dissidents or religious minorities, such as the Uyghurs from Xinjiang province. Through mass surveillance measures such as facial recognition software used in conjunction with state surveillance cameras installed on street corners throughout the major cities like Beijing and Shanghai, the Chinese government has been accused several times of tracking and monitoring its citizens, including several business elites and political opponents. This has forced many people to flee the country. You might think that China's PLA might easily handle the Indian Army, but you'd be making a big mistake. The Indian Army is no longer an easy pushover for the PLA. In fact, it's now clear that the Indian Army is more than just a threat to Pakistan. It could also give Xi Jinping sleepless nights if he doesn't learn how to deal with this fast-growing military power. And the facts are clear. The Indian Army has grown stronger in recent years due to funding increases and new equipment purchases. This not only makes them better equipped than ever before, but also makes them more confident about their capabilities. The training given to soldiers has improved greatly over time. They are now well trained both physically in the art of combat and mentally as well. They have strong leadership at all levels within their hierarchy, as well as excellent motivation from those above them. Their position on borders with Pakistan allows them easy access into disputed territory like Kashmir or Aksai Chin if needed, which would prove effective against Chinese troop movements. They have plenty of experience dealing with different kinds of terrain when deployed abroad in like Africa or Afghanistan. This gives them an advantage over other inexperienced armies who may not know what to do in such environments. The Indian Army is a fearsome opponent to China. It may seem to many people that China will be the clear winner in case of a rivalry, but the reality is that they should be afraid of their neighbors. The Indian Army has been slowly taking over parts of China's territory over the years, and it appears that they are not stopping anytime soon. The two nations are fighting over territory along their borders, but they also have something else in common. Both countries have the vision to occupy the top spot in Asia, and at the moment, it seems nothing will stop any of them. No matter what happens next, we know one thing. The Indian Army will continue to give President Xi Jinping sleepless nights for years to come.